Hello everybody, welcome back to the Advanced Vape channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the BEAST RTA from OHMEGA. So this is sort of a direct competitor to the Modfather, to the VCT, VCST, and something like the 30mm Mason dump tank. So it's a big 30mm RTA. Here's the build deck for it, and here's the actual tank. I'll talk real briefly about what it looks like. It's got both direct and bottom airflow, and they're linked together. It has a juice flow control that you do from turning this. It's got a little bit of a squeak to it because I just washed it. And one thing I want to point out real fast, it's got this engraving here that says the Beast, but this engraving is really sharp and it just catches crap as you use it. So if I were to run my finger across it a few times, it would have, you know, little bits of skin, or if you have it in your pocket, it ends up with cloth in there, and it ends up just looking nasty, and it's hard to clean, and it kind of drives me crazy. So I really wish that this wasn't so sharp. That's just a machining quality thing that gets on my nerves. It's got an all Delrin top cap, and if you know from my review of the Mage, not really a big fan of straight contact between Delrin and steel threads. So it's very easy to cross thread this. And I just, in general, don't like threads made out of Delrin. And here's the bottom of it. And it basically works like the Boreas or the Aromomizer or the Modfather. It's got that RDTA style wicking, and it's got the removable build deck. We'll go on and set the rest of the tank aside, and we'll talk about the build deck just a little bit. I went ahead and put a coil in here, build in here. It's a two-post, two-terminal style build deck, kind of like a phenotype. So one hole on each post, and the coils share that. So nothing really new there. As you can see, it's got the bottom air, and you saw before it has the side air also. So when you're positioning your coils, you're going to want to make sure they're in position to be hit by both the bottom and the side. And this seems to be a good position. As you can see, it has wick channels, but these are RDTA style wick channels. So the juice wells up, and if you wick it like you would the Griffin or something with those wick channels, it's going to leak like crazy. So you kind of have to come at it from the perspective of the RDTA style wicking. So let's go on and dive down close and do the dry fire and get through that. Okay, so the build that I put on there today, it is a quad core alien. There's 4 cores of 30 gauge, and that's wrapped with 36, I believe. That's 3mm and 6 wraps. So a very high performance build. Those quad core aliens, they perform very, very high. So they need a lot of wattage, even with 30 gauge cores. And so this is a good test for a big build deck like this. And we'll go on and get through the dry firing. Got some decent color coming through there. Alright, we're looking good there. I'm going to be using cotton bacon today. Okay, so let's go on and zoom out and do the wicking. Okay, so you're going to want to have these pockets totally full, these channels totally full of cotton. So I'm going to cut it at about halfway, kind of halfway through that air hole. Maybe a little bit up. Okay, now I'm going to brush it out and clean it up a little bit. Okay, and now we're just going to pack these channels. Just taking a look at what the holes look like on the bottom. So it looks pretty well covered. And holding up to the light, I don't see any big gaps in there. From my experience so far with this tank, it is extremely prone to leaking, depending on how you wick. So that whole less is more approach does not work with this tank. And once you get into these tanks that are 30 millimeters and hold a ton of juice, if you do something wrong there, you're going to lose a lot of juice. Which, if you're using premium juice, gets expensive really quick. So normally when I get a new tank, I try different styles. I don't just kind of wick it how I think it'll work best. I'll wick it in a few different ways to try it out, see what works best, and just kind of experiment with it, push it to the edge, and see what makes it leak and what doesn't. So the edge on this one is it's not as tolerant to light wicking as some other tanks, so it'll leak. And that's pretty much true of any of the RDTA style wicking systems. They need a lot of cotton. Now, just like the Boreas or the Aromomizer, this has these little slots that correlate to this build deck, the slot right here, to make sure that you've got it lined up right. So now it's in there all the way. And you'll definitely want to make sure that the juice flow control is closed for this. You kind of just rotate it in the direction of either on or off, if you can see there. So off would be turned in this direction, that direction. On would be this way. So it's off right now. And I'm not gonna totally fill this tank up just in case we've got some leaks or I did something wrong there. With any of these big tanks, I tend to not fill it up all the way when I first rebuild it, just because I don't want to lose a ton of juice. Now I can carefully thread those Delrin threads back on there so they don't cross thread. and let it feed down in there. While it's doing that, I'll change to temp control. And I'm going to go up to about 120. So let's talk a little bit about this airflow. So it's got these offset style Cyclops airflows, and I guess the thought behind that is that you can have it a little bit open on one and closed on the other. So I don't think that it's possible to have it be the bottom all the way open and the top closed. There's still a little bit in there, but it looks like you can have the direct air all the way open and this one all the way closed. For me, the best balance is right about here. So if you have these both all the way open like this, it's super airy. For flavor, I tend to go right about here on the direct air and bottom air. That's a good combination. It's still very airy, but I think it's a good balance between there. I'm not really a huge fan of this bottom and direct airflow with the offset things. It's just kind of a pain to me, but it does perform well. I'm not convinced that they really needed to have both in there. It could have been one or the other, but let's go on and give it a try. Huge, absolutely massive clouds. The flavor is good, but it's not great. It's sort of below the VCST. I would say this at the bottom, VCST Mod Father in that order. It's not bad flavor, but it's not great either. I opened up the airflow just a little bit more, and the flavor thing, to me, it's a wicking issue. And on this tank, the difference between it wicking fast enough for me and leaking is so razor thin that it's really hard to get it to wick how I like it, which is for flavor, and it not just leak everywhere. Since I gave it a second to catch up, the flavor bounced back up, but just hitting it repeatedly, the flavor drops off because it's just not wicking fast enough for me. Yeah, it's not bad flavor. It's got that RDTA style, Aromizer Boreas Modfather style vape to it, if that makes any sense. The way that it feels when you take a vape off of it, that's just that style. Which is good, but there's just, I don't know, there's just some things about this tank that I'm not crazy about. I'm not crazy about the airflow, and I was hoping that it would show it a little bit more, but juice and condensation just seeps from this the longer that you use it, and it ends up just kind of being covered with juice all the time. It gets in between this airflow ring and the O-rings, and it kind of just gets on my nerves that the tank always looks like it's kind of oily, like it's covered in juice after you've been using it for a while. So you can see a little bit there coming out of the seams there, But the more that you use it, especially if you're using a big build and you breathe out and then in, as it's ramping up, which is a pretty common thing to do with the bigger builds, that really makes it start to have juice on the outside, that condensation. And there's a lot of other tanks that don't have that issue. So it's just one of those things that gets on my nerves, and I already talked about this getting kind of nasty because it's sharp. It's not a bad tank, it's just got things about it that get on my nerves. And that's just my personal opinion on it. Performance-wise, it's not bad. I would still use it, but I would use something like the Modfather or the VCST before this. If I'm not mistaken, the Delrin top is kind of a solvable problem. I believe that it comes with a metal one also. I'm not positive about that, but I'm pretty sure that it comes with the metal one too, top cap. So overall, it's not a bad tank, and if you like that build deck and just the way that it looks, then it's a good choice as far as flavor and performance. But it does have those little things that just get on my nerves. If for some reason you don't like the Modfather, can't get a hold of it, or the VCST, it's a good choice for a big 30mm tank that you can fit a big build in there. So we're going to be talking a little bit more in the next video after this about another 30mm, and that is the Mason dump tank. So I've got it here. We're going to be doing a build on that and talking about it a little bit more, and then kind of wrapping up all four of these and comparing what I think is the best and all of that kind of stuff. So overall, the final verdict on this, good flavor and performance. It's just got a couple things that get on my nerves, and that's just me personally. Kind of hard to wick for flavor anyway, and it just gets a little bit of juice seepage going on around the airflow ring, and that just gets on my nerves. As long as you're not just chain ripping it, it does have really good flavor, and it keeps up with you. As I just sit here and talk for a second and let it catch up, the flavor does bounce back up to a level that I would consider very good. Yeah, that'll bring us to the end of this video about the BEAST RTA from OHMEGA. If you like this video and our channel, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below or send me an email. Thanks.